On this channel, we're practicing storytelling through filmmaking. This video is really vibes-based. What I've done is I've taken a micro scene out of what would be the short film, just to sort of check myself, get a temperature for what I'm making and figure out, does this do what it's supposed to do? Does it make me feel what I think the film should make me feel? Part of this video is going to be the literal how-to, the camera, the lens, where the lights are, the making of the YouTube video, and then one part, why, just my brain and where I was going, and we're just going to hopscotch between those two things. The Americans, Mr. Robot. I'm kind of going through a mental obsession with espionage and with spy stories and why they're compelling, and the interests of like having a country or a corporation that you serve, but also having your own goals and having your own mysteries. And I have this sort of overarching idea for a story, but I wanted to make something now. So here's the short.
Still blind.
A secret agent named Lynx. Lynx does not work for a single country. She was actually recruited post-Soviet to work for modern-day Russia. She is basically a go-between between handlers and assets in Chicago. I wanted to set all of my stories in Chicago. I think Chicago's beautiful. I had kind of an outline for a story where she is operating in the city kind of undercover, but the CIA was sort of aware of her, but they think she's missing. They don't know where she is. There's one guy who's convinced that she's still in the city and that she is the linchpin to this broader conspiracy, this broader spy ring. In the story that I had, when I was thinking to myself, what would be really interesting to make, I was like, oh, I could set it up so that she's going around and essentially couriering thumb drives of information between places, between people, and she gets hit, like a partial facial recognition comes across. She would normally go out in public in like a mask and sunglasses, medical mask. And in my head, I was like, oh, there's this really cool story that revolves around this cat and mouse game between these two. They're both aware of each other, but the broader CIA basically says, stop wasting time on this or find proof. So he basically gets close to her, takes a fake phone call, says like, I'm close, and she's within earshot. They're on a public setting, think a train platform, and she decides, I'm going to set up a fake meeting between me and a handler. I'm going to let him find out about that meeting so he can go to it. When I don't show up, he'll come back to his place. I will have stolen what I need. You know, spy, espionage story. The thing that she needs are credentials because she needs to verify in the story what the CIA knows. So she sets up a trap that this agent, this CIA man, falls into. She gets the credentials out of his apartment, returns home, logs into the CIA terminal, and verifies the CIA has nothing on her. They don't even know where she is. Now, the writer in me is like, well, go ahead, finish the outline. Where do they go? How do they meet? I think I want the CIA agent to flip her. I want her to only be working for Russia or some other country because she was coerced into it. I want it to be this like unraveling of storylines. But I also want to know that it doesn't look stupid. When I got to the end of that thought process, I went to Albie and I said, hey, I want to film just this scene. It's the scene where you have returned home, you log in, and you verify that you're still missing. So we only have this like 49-second clip that can detail what we're seeing. So that's the broad stroke of Lynx and her story. How does the movie actually begin? How do they get to this point? How does the CIA flip her? Does the CIA flip her? Is it just an arrangement that this one particular agent has with her in particular? I've told the story to Albie up to what I know, and I've written down, and now you kind of know where it could go and what its background is and where it ends up. On the off chance that it dies on my hard drive like so many story ideas have, I wanted to at least have this visual piece. So now for the gear-centric side, I come from watching camera reviews and getting really interested in cameras. So I did want to have a section of this video where I talked about what I used. This was shot on the Cinema 6K, the full frame L mount, the same L mount and sensor that I believe is in the Pixis 6K. We shot on a $120 Pro Scout tripod. The piece of equipment that I heavily recommend everybody own one is a fluid head. That's one of the best ways that I've found to get smooth pans and smooth tilts. You can try to just do it on a ball head like this. It still works, but I find that the amount of times I'm panning and tilting off of a tripod is just, I would say, the vast majority. When it comes to like what looks cinematic, I don't get into the anamorphic is cinematic or this aspect ratio is cinematic. I go, are there micro jitters? There are no micro jitters. It's like already most of the way to cinema. So locked off on a tripod or moved on a fluid head to reveal information to the audience is like golden when it comes to does this look like a movie. But yeah, so we use the Cinema 6K. I really like it as a one-man band who alternates between shooting handheld and shooting on a tripod. Quick release plate. I love it. The other thing that I really loved using was the Sirui full frame 1.6 squeeze 50 millimeter. The lesson here is that you have, I think, 3 feet minimum focus, but a diopter set to go along with your anamorphic lens is huge and very helpful and very, very cool looking. We did the anamorphic, and I just love how when you cross anamorphic, when you come close and far away, those characteristics are stuff I really look for. Also used a practical. I had this lamp in the back, and I used this Amaran 100X to sort of play for the light. I wanted to give the illusion that everything was being lit by this lamp. I don't think I did a very good job of that. I had a reflector cone on it, not any kind of light control. So it sort of taught me like, oh, hey, I failed at the look I wanted. I really should have gotten some sort of light control, and I really should have made the scene more contrasty in camera. So another reason to do micro experiments like this and to shoot the things you've written, even if they aren't complete, is if your goal is to work with yourself or a small crew, you want to know what you want out of a scene. And I know that in this scene, when she sits down and is on the computer, I know I would prefer a darker, more contrasty scene that involves more light control. I know that I want to have the monitor, a gag on the monitor where she's being illuminated by that monitor. Having a brightly lit room doesn't fit with the vibe that I was doing. It does evenly light her and make it really pretty, so there's that benefit too. But why shoot micro scenes? It's so that if you're a one-man band, you can more identify what you want. So that was a cool little thing. I also had 3 Amaran MCs that served as practicals. If I did this again, I would try to put in a fake street light that's coming in because the kitchen is extremely blue, and it's extremely blue for one reason. It's because I was infatuated with this Amazon Basics tea kettle, not sponsored, that when it was on and boiling, it had this blue light. And I was like, I know that I want her to be making tea. I know that I want her to be comfortable. And when we shot that scene, it didn't work with the computer scene, so we just didn't end up using it. But I do have her start in the kitchen under all that blue and then come into the living room where it's orange. And it kind of gives us that natural contrast. And I really like when you can build in the color differences. Color grading is awesome. I got started on a lot of YouTube with like how to make my boring footage look more cinematic. A lot of the tips that I tried to implement in software, I have personally found are way easier to implement live in camera. So that is one of the reasons I keep doing the micro shorts, is to keep trying to make things live in camera. MC's Amaran 100X are the lights. What's important to note, we did not use any live audio. All the audio in it was either recorded on this after the fact. So she sighs, she breathes, there's footsteps. That was all after the fact, either live Foley that we recorded or from Storyblocks, not sponsored. And so is the music. Now, a lot of times you put together a scene like this, you just want it to look and feel how it's supposed to look and feel. So you say, okay, I'm gonna use stock audio. Okay, I'm gonna use Foley after the fact. Basically, the camera for this short was like the least important part of it. It was way more important to try and nail down the vibe, and the vibe was made with the lights and the choice of angles. I do have one controversial thing, one last thing to touch. The website in the movie was an experiment as well in what can we get away with on screen. I asked ChatGPT to make me a picture of a CIA login page. And what Chat did is it made me the login page in HTML. I then asked it to make the login page displayable, or like tell me how to make it displayable, and it did. Once I made it displayable, I was blown away. It has the header, it has the username, password. In the first iterations, there were no credentials. If you clicked login, it would display no credentials as red text. And then no matter what you put in, it would be like access denied. And then it would throw up this little like, this event has been cataloged. And it was so cool. And it was so spooky. And I realized as soon as I did it, I said, oh, this is interesting. Because from an artist perspective, who's not a web designer, who doesn't want to dedicate any time to web design, using a tool like ChatGPT to make an in-universe website that an actor or a model can click around on and can react to is so powerful. I need 2 columns. I need a column of names and a column of case numbers. And I need all of those to be clickable in a web page and just open in a browser. And the time it took me to describe that to you is what I did. And then it was like, what name should I use? And I was like, here's a bunch of names you can use. And then, here's the format for file types so we can make it really cool. And then, you iterate. Eventually you end up with this thing that took you 15, 20 minutes. You didn't have to code. You didn't have to go onto a website like Storyblocks, pay them to use their tools. And it opens up a really interesting thing because on the one hand, it's not a real website. Its only purpose is to be on screen in this short film. So does it make sense to use this tool in that way? Does it make sense to use chat to build props in your movie? And, it's something I'd love to know kind of like where the consensus is. And I know that I'm saying that to like 13 or 14 people who end up watching this video, and that's fine. But the fact that the tool is available and the fact that it can be used to show things on screen, I didn't give it any graphics. All of the icons, so the login button that lights up, that's HTML code. The actual credentials, like I went back in once it gave me HTML code and I gave it my credentials that I wanted her to use. So because you have HTML, you can then go through and you can make it how you want it to reflect on screen once you have the framework of the web page built. There's lots of stuff that kind of makes me feel unsure, but I did want to be honest about like the website design because that took half a day for me to like really experiment and learn about and get used to. And once I had done that, I was like, this makes her as a hacker passable. And being able to give an actor something to act off of and get much more authentic interactions, that was so much more important to me for what I was putting on screen. Is that acceptable? So it opens up a lot of questions, and it is one of the things I wanted to leave this video on. I don't know what the right answer is, and I don't even know if anybody feels strongly one way or the other, but I did want to say it's an interesting time we live in when you can have a tool do a pretty major thing for you that lets the whole movie feel real. I'm going to do lots more of these with lots more little videos that I shoot, talking about the kind of stories I want to tell, developing them and their visual styles. And hopefully you enjoyed this long rant and ramble, and hopefully you have an opinion on whether or not it's okay to use AI in various stages of your story's development. Thank you so much for watching. If it's in your heart to follow me on this journey, please, let me know by giving me a sub. It'd be super helpful to know kind of where your thoughts are. I've been Justin. You've been awesome. Don't forget to make movies and tell stories, even if they only live on TikTok and Instagram. Those can be movies too. Thank you so much.